ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seed. This is slapping meat, yes, slapping meat. From suplex dreams to championship gold, stories untold and action so bold. The match shakes fury and fire within. We're breaking it down, let the podcast begin. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seed. This is slapping meat, yes, slapping meat. Takes and debates flying through the air. Turnbuckles pounding with passion and flair. Grab your earbuds, it's a front row ride. Step into the chaos where we collide. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn up loud, feel the power in your seed. This is slapping meat, yes, slapping meat. Slapping meat.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy WETOODEEP. We are back with another episode of the Slappin' Meat Wrestling Podcast. Special kind of bonus episode here. Sort of unplanned. Wasn't really planning on doing a night one review. More than likely won't be doing a night two review. You'll get that on, like, as a special episode. The initial plan was to just review the whole thing on Tuesday, but I am going to go ahead and review night one, as I do have, some time to do that tonight. So we'll talk about night one here, the ups, the downs, where I think we're headed, and so I will say this. The last two matches saved this show. It started a little rough, right? Not saying that the action was bad, right? But for people who know how I watch wrestling, right? I'm not necessarily concerned with the action as much as I am, does the action in the ring make sense going forward? And so we start with Jay and Roman versus Braun and Bronson, and I thought the show was, I thought this match was good. It was a good match. It did what it needed to do. I wasn't expecting, a Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega flipathon. And so we got exactly what I expected outside of the actual results, which I thought lacked a little bit. I didn't think Jay and Roman needed that win, especially when you do the go-home show on Monday and you have them, look like legitimate threats, whether or not the ending of the show was going to happen, right? Because one could argue, because of how the show went off the air with the cash-in, which we'll talk about, that you can have both parts of the group win, and I would say, why not? And so I thought Braun and Bronson needed that win more, because more than likely what's going to happen Roman's probably going to leave again. And then Jay's probably going to be thrown into the War Games build, which I will describe at the end of this episode. Right? And so I don't necessarily think they needed the win. Braun and Bronson as a tag team needed a win that made them feel unstoppable. Right? And so I think the match was fine. I think the result didn't really make much sense. Right? And so with that, a decent start, wasn't anything special. We get to match 2. You get Charlotte and Alexa versus Roxanne and Raquel. It is similar. Like I felt like the match was booked very similar to the opening match. The baby faces get the shit beat out of them. They come back, and the more casual fan base will say, well, that's how you do wrestling. That's how you do storytelling. It's not really copy, but it is copy, paste, repeat. Like, it's the same template. It felt like with a lot of this show, I'm going to be honest, that Paul Levesque wrote a template and said, here's the template. Now everyone run the match the same way. It's different characters, but right. That's how it felt to me in at least 3 of these matches, right? So the critiques I had in match 1, I have in match 2 as well. I'm not the biggest fan of Alexa and Charlotte winning the championships for multiple reasons. It's the same reason I always have with these tag championships. There isn't a legitimate division. And so what WWE has to do is, okay, well, the Judgment Day's champion, they're the only real legitimate women's tag team on the roster. So now we have to pair women together to give them someone to defend against. And I like the story between Alexa and Charlotte, but I don't necessarily think it requires them to be, the tag champions. I think what should have happened, now I've always said this, right? And this is giving away a little bit of what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. Is I watched the WWE Unreal documentary, the 5 episodes so far. Excuse me, and so I'm going to give a general review on some of my thoughts on Tuesday. And one of the things I'm going to say is that the conversation around Charlotte and Tiffany's Mania match and everything that was shown behind the scenes about Charlotte led me to believe, leads me to believe that I was right in my reaction towards that situation. I'll explain on Tuesday, but also that my main critique of that feud was that they were casted wrong, and this leads me to further go deeper into that they casted the characters wrong in that storyline. That Charlotte should have been the babyface who wanted to make a name for herself, who had some self-doubts that she could even still go in a division full, right? I felt that could have been better, right? And we'll go deeper in that on Tuesday. So I'm not against Charlotte at this point in her career being a babyface and having this little tag team with Alexa, but I ultimately think it should lead to them breaking up. Whether it's Alexa turning, whether it's Charlotte realizing that, or truly showing that I only used you, Alexa, to try to get to the top, only to realize that you're not as good anymore as you think you are, that you're holding me back, so I had to get rid of the dead weight. I would have preferred something like that, which you could still do. I just don't think it requires you taking the belts off the only legitimate tag team on the roster. Right? Especially when the better story to have them lose the belts would be when Liv is ready and Liv could come back and as the babyface and form a team with someone. If you're just going to randomly put people together and form a team with someone and be the one to either cost them the belt, that way she doesn't need a partner, she could just cost them the belts, or form a team with some newer superstar, right? And, you know, go out there and take the titles from Judgment Day. Ultimately, I felt that should have been the bigger story. I'm going to be honest, Liv returning doesn't really mean much anymore. Right? Because the whole little bit of excitement I had about Liv Morgan, and I've come to a conclusion, right, partially because of Kara in the Discord. Me and her have had some conversations about Liv Morgan, and I've been a little hard on Liv, right, over the last 2 years or so. That I kind of held her in this lens of she's just ordinary, and if I'm being honest, Liv Morgan might be the most consistent woman on the roster. I don't think she has bad matches. Right? I think she's, I know this is going to be controversial. I think she's better than Rhea. Rhea sometimes doesn't always come across as, you know, 100% every single time. And I could, you know, that could just be me looking at it wrong. I'm not saying Rhea's bad. I think Liv is more consistent. I think Rhea's the superstar of the two because she has the height, the look. She's a little bit unique. But I think Liv is the better of the two. I think she sells better. I think her promo game is better. I think her look, like we talk about marketability, I think Liv is more marketable, especially if she comes back as a babyface. Liv Morgan can be on all your posters and sell you tickets, right? And so I'm going to have to like swap, you know, turn course of Liv Morgan has gained some credibility in my power rankings, right? I used to be really harsh on Liv, and I'm if I truly have to be honest, right, with the audience, I think it's not the correct way to look at Liv Morgan. I think Liv Morgan definitely top 3 on the WWE roster. If I had to, right, in my opinion, from what I look for with my criteria, Liv Morgan is top 3. I would say, honestly, that Lyra Valkyria is in the top 3. Probably number 3. And then number 2, if I had to be honest, would be Rhea Ripley. Rhea, Lyra, and Liv are probably the best right now on the main roster. As much as I like Julia, as much as I like Stephanie Vaquero, as much as I like Bianca Belair, as much as I like Jade Cargill, Rhea, Lyra, and Liv Morgan are probably the best 3 overall most consistent wrestlers on the roster in the women's division. Right, so again, with this women's tag team, I'm just not feeling the results. So the first 2 matches felt booked very similar. The babyface, like to the point, like I watched with my dad tonight, and he doesn't follow the storyline. So like, and then I'm not gonna like tell him, like, I'm not going to be one like an AEW, sicko and, jump down his throat because he doesn't understand what's going on, right? But he even pointed out during the women's tag team championship match, he was like, I know who's going to win this match because they're booking it the same as the first one. My dad could figure that out, right? And he doesn't watch the programming, right? Now, everyone could say, well, it was always going to be Charlotte and Alexa. Why are you surprised? It's not necessarily that I hate that they won. It's that the story doesn't make sense. There's no reason to bring Liv Morgan back, because what I was trying to get into is that the entire intrigue about Liv returning is her coming back to face Roxanne Perez. At least to me, that was my intrigue. Was she was going to come back, try to get her space back in the Judgment Day, and Roxanne says no, and then you could sort of have Dom and Raquel take her side, and then you can have Finn sort of side with Liv, even like, or you could have Finn side with Raquel, because he sort of was the reason, if we're being realistic, he was the reason Roxanne was even in the group. So you can have like the Judgment Day side against Liv, essentially kicking her out, and then her and Roxanne could start a feud, and then maybe that could turn into her finding a partner. Similar to this sort of Jey Uso storyline, where like when he turned babyface, he had to find some help, and a lot of the baby faces were like, no, we're not going to help you because you were a dick to us when you were in the bloodline, right? You could sort of run that same story with Liv, where like, you need help, but we're not going to help you because you're, you were a dick to us in the Judgment Day, right? So the first two matches were good matches. They just weren't necessarily the best results, right? So then we get into match 3, which is Sami and Karrion, which was the worst match of the night. The only match I predicted correctly, by the way, for night 1. The only match I predicted correctly. And one could argue from a perspective of the results. I know there's a lot of people, especially in our Discord, that thought that this was also the worst result. I don't agree with that. And here's why I don't agree with that. Because this match was actually one of the only matches whose result made sense. Because there was a purpose to this match. I need you to walk through with me, right? I need you to sort of take off the hatred towards Sami Zayn or your love towards Karrion Kross and trying to be like, well, WWE's not listening to the fans and giving us Kross. I need you to look at the story. And I told you this the night after WrestleMania, right? The night after WrestleMania, I've been on this train for, well, WrestleMania was middle of April, so May, June, July. We're now into August. About 3.5 months. About 3.5 months I've been telling you that Triple H does one story that is typically a 1-year-long storyline. And he's setting that up. But he's setting it up. Immediately, the setup was Sami and Seth. You had to put that picture in the minds of the wrestling fans. Right? And then you over the next year, they're not going to be interconnected for a year, but they're going to circle back. And so what happens? Sami continues this feud with Karrion. And that takes 3.5 months. Seth, on the other hand, he wins Money in the Bank. He builds this faction around him. And like what we kind of expected to happen, to sort of jump the lead here, he's now the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I don't remember exactly what I said 3.5 months ago. when Seth was going to become champion. I think I said SummerSlam. But now what you're going to have for Seth, and we'll probably go over this again at the end of the episode, is you have Seth continuing to build dominance in the faction. I think they're going to add a fourth member. And there's your War Games. You have the baby faces, and I'm going to give my 4 names at the end of the episode. And then you have Team Seth. And he just needs a fourth member. And we could contemplate some names as well at the end of the episode. What they're doing with Sami with this Karrion Kross storyline is simple. It's very simple. You need to prove that Sami Zayn isn't at all going to cheat on his way to becoming world champion. That he's going to stay true to who he is. Karrion Kross's whole premise in this match was, you're just like the rest of us, but you think you're high and mighty. You think that you're better than us. And what Sami Zayn proved tonight, the entire purpose of this match, not every match has to, this is a match right here where the result is to lead you towards something bigger than the match itself. This is one of those matches that continues the larger narrative. Outside of the fact that from all knowledge known, Karrion Kross's contract ends this month, possibly within the next week or two, and it doesn't sound like he's going to re-sign. So we take the backstage out of it, and we just analyze it for what's on TV. The narrative that we're building is Sami Zayn proving that he is the ultimate white meat babyface who's going to earn the title, and he's not going to steal it or cheat his way. And so you got to prove that he's pure. And that this was the purity test. So the booking for Sami is essentially you build him, you put him back in this feud with, reintroduce him back into this feud with Seth, and joining this team of baby faces, and I'll name names at the end of the episode for what I think it's going to be, and then you build that for the next, for August, September, October, November, so that's 4 months. For the next 4 months, Sami's probably going to have more purity tests, probably going to lose some matches, probably going to be knocked down a little bit, right? Be beaten up by Bronson and all of them again, right? To build up till War Games. Post War Games, you then build him going into Royal Rumble in Saudi, where Sami Zayn wins the Royal Rumble. Now you're going post War Games, and I would even have Sami Zayn win War Games. Now you're starting this uphill climb of the redemption arc for Sami Zayn. He wins Royal Rumble, immediately calls out Seth Rollins, and he beats Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 42. And that's the end of the year-long story. Right? I'm getting everyone set up for what I believe is going to happen. Now that's 8 months away. I could be wrong. Triple H could swerve, but what are we approaching? We're approaching October. And I truly believe this. Triple H has WrestleMania pretty much figured out. Because he explains on this documentary that he books in terms of seasons, right? And so it's WrestleMania season, which starts at the Royal Rumble. And then you book through Mania. And then you have SummerSlam season. So you book from Mania to SummerSlam. And then you have War Games season, which is from SummerSlam through War Games, and then you have Royal Rumble season, I guess you could say. But after War Games, you have 1 month, maybe a month and a half, really, of the month of December, which really doesn't matter, because once you get into January, you're really into WrestleMania season. Right? And so we're now on the road to War Games. And I 100% believe Triple H has his initial plans for WrestleMania and how that's going to start with Royal Rumble booked by October. But that doesn't mean plans can't change if someone gets hot before then. But I think the goal right now is to get Sami's right. So that's what Cross versus Zayn's entire purpose is. I know we wanted Cross to get a win. I wanted Cross to win. I know I picked Sami, but I picked Sami because I understood the narrative and where we're headed. But I really wanted Cross to win. I like Karrion Kross. Plus, this is in his hometown. He's from New York, in his hometown area, right? I really would have loved Karrion Kross to win. I just knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't going to happen because the entire story for that entire match was to lead to Scarlett giving Sami the pipe and for him to throw it down and remain pure. That's the entire story for this match. That was the purpose. And so because they achieved that purpose, I can't hate on the match. I can't hate on the result. It did exactly what it needed to do. To continue the little tidbits of story in Sami Zayn's character that will lead us to ultimately him becoming world champion in April. Match after that, Tiffany versus Jade. Again, match was fantastic. I don't know where all this hate for Jade Cargill comes from. Because even like JD said, perfect result, Jade's not ready. I don't know where people see this at. I think Jade is more than ready to carry. Apparently, she's going away to film a movie. The problem I have with that is you could still make her champion and not need her at Paris. You could have her win here and then have the major focus in the women's division for Paris be on Stephanie Vaquer versus the winner of the other match tomorrow night. And that could be your focus. And you won't have to have a focus on Jade Cargill. She can go and celebrate her victory, right? And still be champion. While she goes and films for what it's going to be a month, 2 months at most. So she'll still be ready for Perth. She'll still be ready for Survivor Series. So I'm not the biggest fan of Tiffany retaining, and here's why. Who's next for Tiff? First off, I don't like the title run. But second, who's going to defeat her? Because ultimately, where I would have taken this was Jade win tonight. Whenever she gets done filming, I completely forgot she was filming. But we can move the timeline back, right? When she gets done from filming, she can come back. And then there's really 3 big matches for Jade Cargill. Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is going to have to wait because she's now tag champions. But my plan was you can run a feud between her and Bianca for the title where Jade goes over. And then you can immediately go into Rumble season or Mania season where it's Jade versus Charlotte for the title. Where Charlotte puts Jade over again. That's sort of the position I would have Charlotte be, is she's the standard that if you beat her, that puts you over, right? Excuse me. So, again, I'm not upset. My question then is just what's next, because I don't know who's next. Bianca's still hurt. Who knows when she's coming back? Charlotte's in the tag division. We don't want to see Tiffany and Nia again. Is it going to be Chelsea Green? I wouldn't hate it. It would be a good match. But we know Chelsea Green's not beating Tiffany Stratton. So, I just... It's not Julia, because she's in the women's U.S. title picture as champion. It's not going to be Zelina. It's not going to be Michin. Chelsea Green's really the only other competitor I could see, but she's like basically a bona fide jobber at this point. She's the Dolph Ziggler of the women's division. Unless you call up some NXT girls like a Sol Ruka or something like that, but I still don't see that. So are we going to run Tiffany through Mania again? I just don't see it, right? I think Jade would have had the better outcome because you already have, with Jade, unless you move Rhea over to SmackDown and put Rhea against Tiffy, but that doesn't make much sense. Right? And so I'm confused for now. Now, as more information comes, maybe I can change my opinion. I just don't think that the result necessarily was the best, right? So of the first 4 matches, I don't think the result was good. Personally, I just don't think the result was good. I thought all the matches were fine. The action was fine. If I had to say anything about Tiffany versus Jade, it was that this match was short as shit. Like, it was like 9 minutes. And this match deserved at least 15. It was way too far, especially if you're going over 9 o'clock. If you're going over 9 o'clock already, can we not give this match 5 more minutes? 5, 6, 7 more minutes to truly pace this thing out, to make, as a fan, you sort of need some time to settle in, and by the time you really settled into the match, it ended. And it was a really awkward ending as well, in my opinion. I've lost a lot of my fandom of Tiffany Stratton since she became champion. I don't think she's ready for the spotlight. I think Jade's better than her, 100%. Plus, from a story perspective, I think Jade has more potential stories than what Tiffany has at the moment. So then we move into Randy Orton, Jelly Roll versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. Match number 5 of the night. And so far, of the first 4 matches, I'm 1-3 in terms of matches I predicted correctly. And the one match I predicted correctly is the only match so far that I've liked the result. Right? Just plainly the result. Not the action. None of that. I thought the action was fine. But the results, right? So then we get to this match. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This was match of the night. This was match of the night. It won't be match of SummerSlam because tomorrow night's card, and we're going to do what I'm looking forward to tomorrow segment here at the end, but tomorrow night's card's so much better. I meant to say that on Thursday when I did my predictions. Sunday night's card is 1,000 times better than Saturday night's. Right? So this was match of the night. Let me tell you why. It's not that it was the most technical match. It was the most fun match of the night. It told an emotional story throughout. The story of Jelly Roll. And as a big guy who kind of relates with Jelly, right? I don't know his full past, and I definitely don't relate with everything he's been through. He's been through a lot of stuff. But Jelly Roll's someone that I can get behind. He did an interview with Stephanie McMahon earlier this week where he mentioned that his goal to head into SummerSlam was to be under 300 pounds, and because if he gets under 300 pounds, it would be the first time since the 6th grade that Jelly Roll would be under 300 pounds. I don't necessarily relate to that fully, but it's something I can relate to. And then for her to announce on the pre-show he's $299 official weigh-in today. That in and of itself was like, I can get behind this dude. And then he gets in the ring, and he wasn't the most technical wrestler. You know, he didn't move the way that, you know, a wrestler should move. But that made it more realistic. This was a celebrity who's overweight, out of shape, probably isn't in peak cardio shape. He's not in ring shape. He doesn't do this for a living. And it made it a little bit more realistic. But you also, what you really had was, it was about his heart. The spot where Logan puts him through the announce table and he gets basically carried away by medical, for him to turn around and look at Randy and say, I'm not forsaking my guy. That's pure emotion right there, that you don't get in a lot of wrestling shows. Sent some chills and goosebumps up my arms and my back. This was such a good match. I will not allow for any critique of this whatsoever. The fans were well behind it. They were loud for Jelly Roll. You know when Jelly Roll starts getting that European Jelly Roll, Jelly Roll chant, that he's over. And what's crazy is these nerds in the sickos and on the IWC, why is Jelly Roll on the card but LA Knight's not? Why is Jelly Roll taking the spot of Carmelo Hayes? Because Carmelo Hayes isn't over on the main roster with this crowd the way Jelly Roll is when Jelly Roll steps on the stage and in the ring. Because LA Knight doesn't have half the response. Now, LA Knight gets some response, but it's not Jelly Roll level response. Right? Now, the one thing about this is Jelly Roll started hulking up, and then he gets beat. That was, again, the result just doesn't make sense. You could protect Drew by not having him take the pin. Have Logan take the pin from Jelly Roll, and it'd still be a great finish. Right? The only thing I hated about this match was the finish. Right? This did everything that it needed to do. Right? So then we get to the main event. You get to the main event, CM Punk and Gunther. And this match was booked exactly as the first two matches. CM Punk gets the ever-living shit beat out of him, only for him to come back in the last 2 minutes of this match, hit 2 GTSs as Gunther's bleeding, and they called it a nosebleed, which is definitely not what it was. He was leaking from his forehead, but they tried to play it off as the nose, which is possibly why he's getting written off, because he's having like nose surgery or something done, right? And so whatever's going on with Gunther, he then takes 2 GTSs, he loses, right? CM Punk is the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, just on that result by itself, I'm not upset. After watching Unreal, I'm extremely happy for CM Punk, right? And again, I'll give my opinions, because he was a major part of this documentary. So I'll give my opinions on Unreal on Tuesday. But he wins, and I'm like, bro, I'm not even upset. Like, this was the one match on this night's card where I'm like, the result doesn't really hurt my feelings. I really wanted Jade to win. I really wanted Braun and Bronson to win. I felt that they needed the wins, right? I wanted Cross to win. I knew he would, and that's why I picked Sammy, but I would have loved if Cross got a win, right? But this was one of those matches where I look at it and I'm like, But if you look at the Raw roster, and you look at the people here in the World Heavyweight Championship picture, you got Gunther, you got Sammy, you got Seth, you got Punk. Of those four, Gunther and Punk are my favorites. Not the biggest fan of Seth, I'm to be honest with you. I think he's very good. Like, I like Seth. I'm not the biggest fan of him in this faction. I think that if it was just Braun and Bronson, it would be better. 100%. Right, but Punk and Gunther are probably my favorite. The only other superstar on the Raw roster I like more than Punk and Gunther is Dominic Mysterio. I'm not upset that Punk won. My predictions are going to take a hit. I didn't see Punk win it because what I saw happening was Punk being hit because I truly thought that Seth Rollins was injured. And you know what's fun? I love being swerved. It's why I don't read Sean Ross Sapp's shit. Right? Because James came to me during the Tiffany match with like, oh man, Fightful's reporting that Tiffany's bound to win. I'm like, bro, first off, I don't care what Fightful says. But second, why are you why do you pay to have the show spoiled to you? Right? And here's why. Because he only cares about the match. He only cares about the X's and O's. If the match is good, then him knowing the results going into it doesn't ruin what he watches. But for someone like me who watches for story, if you spoil the story, you spoil the entire reason. Like, right? So I'm like, bro, I don't care. Right? I like being surprised. I do. I like being surprised. And so Seth coming out here, because he's sitting here, oh no, it's all a ruse, and I'm sitting there, you literally like, no, bro. Seth Rollins comes walking out with Paul Heyman on these crutches. I'm like, see, I fucking told you he was injured. Seth turns around. And then all of a sudden, he starts pulling that knee brace off. And I'm like, he fucking got us. There was a little bit of me that says, okay, this is a ruse. But I truly thought he was hurt. And Seth Rollins ends up cashing in. This is the point where my dad was like, well, that doesn't make sense. The storyline would have been better if Seth held it longer. And again, I wasn't going to jump down and say, no, the story is that Seth was going to do anything possible to keep Punk from being champion, which is why this makes sense. But I wasn't going to jump down his throat because he doesn't watch the product. Right? But I just... The way this show went off the air was fine. I loved it. The last two matches really made up for a really subpar first four matches. Even though the Jelly Roll match result makes no sense. But now let's get to where do we go from here for the World Heavyweight Championship? Well, we're booking towards Paris. You can have Punk and Rollins again as a rematch in Paris. After Seth retains, or some sort of DQ where Braun and Bronson get involved, which then sets up booking towards Perth, where I think you have Braun and Bronson versus Punk and Sami Zayn. Now you're starting to form the tag teams. I think at some point, right? So now you get to War Games, because after Perth, it's War Games. It's the last PLE of the year for WWE. You got 3 left. You got Paris, you got Perth. So you got Clash in Paris, Crown Jewel, Perth, and Survivor Series in San Diego or San Jose or whatever Californian city it is. And so you're gonna build towards War Games, and it's gonna be the baby faces, which will be Sammy, Punk for sure, for certain. Sammy and Punk. I think it's gonna be Sammy, Punk, Penta, and LA Knight. I don't think Jay gets involved in this. Maybe Jay gets involved, replaces LA Knight. I'm going to be honest with you. I would rather Jay over LA Knight. They're practically the same character to me. Right? They're practically the same. It's all entrance. Nothing in the ring excites me about either one of the two. And I know there's some in the audience that, are going to be pissed off that I say that, but it is what it is. It's literally the truth. Let me keep it real with you. 100% real. Jey Uso is all entrance, nothing in the ring excites me. LA Knight is all entrance, it's all catchphrases, nothing in the ring excites me when LA Knight is doing a match. The only parts that LA Knight's exciting in is when he's doing a promo. So whether it's Jay or LA Knight, it doesn't matter. But I think it's going to be Punk, Sammy, Penta, and then either Jay or LA Knight. For Team Rollins, it'll be Rollins, Bronson, and Braun. So now the question is, who's the fourth man? And I think you got time. I think you bring this person in Perth. You'll have Sammy and Punk versus Braun and Bronson, right? At some point during that match, you know, whether it's the beginning or the end, the match is ended or it's an interference again. You can have other DQ finishes or whatever, right? And there's a beatdown where the numbers game plays in. Sammy and Punk are outnumbered. Seth and Braun and Bronson starts beating the shit, right? So then Penta comes out. And then maybe Jay comes out. Or Jay or an LA Knight, whoever the fourth member for the good guys are. So now they have the number advantage. And that's when you hit them with the fourth man for Rollins, right? Now, I don't know exactly who it could be. I like the idea Wavy D brought up that it's Tony D'Angelo. The way NXT ended on Tuesday with the sort of Sopranos-esque ending where there's a shadow and Tony D's basically like, I'm not the Don anymore. I could see it being Tony D'Angelo. I just don't know what other heel you could do. Like, it's not going to, like I know that people want it to be Ethan Page. It's not Ethan Page. It's not Ethan Page. I 100% don't believe it's Ethan Page. Because what I know is that CW, the CW network, loves Ethan Page. He does all of their marketing, right? They love Ethan Page. NXT is not losing Ethan Page. At all. I have two names. I think we could possibly see Miles Bourne. Being that Stephanie Vaquer is on Raw, Miles Bourne can be introduced to the main roster with really no baggage. There's no real story that really is that he like. The one thing with Tony D, and this was brought up, you know, Highlander in our Discord, he does have a point, right? I'm not going to argue against his point. Tony D'Angelo is, you know, there's a character there that most people know. I mean, he's been in NXT for 5 years working on the family gimmick. I'm going to be honest, what I would love to see is this shadow, I'm just going to rabbit trail for a minute, this shadow of Santos Escobar, and they play back into when the family broke up Legado the first time. And now Legado comes and tries to revive Tony D. And we go full circle where Tony D joins Legado. I would like that. I'll be honest with you. I think that would be cool. But I don't think that's what happens. I'm really intrigued with this story. Back to the fourth man, right? Miles Bourne doesn't have that story that connects him to anything. You could sort of mold him into whatever you want. Though Miles Bourne almost feels like a babyface waiting to happen with, like he's white meat babyface because he's deaf, and you could sort of play into that, right? And the other name that comes to mind, a lot of people have been asking the last few weeks, Grayson Waller's been with the New Day, where's Austin Theory? Well, you have to do something in the business of television, especially in WWE. The more you take someone off TV, the more likely you are to forget about them. And so you have to clear the mind of and the conscience of Austin Theory, right? So, for example, the reason why I think the swerve with Seth Rollins works is he gets what we thought injured in this match against LA Knight. So we completely take off the table he's cashing in. Now, there are some who kind of figured it was a ruse to begin with, and they thought maybe it could happen. But someone like me was like, well, no, Seth Rollins is injured, so I'm not going to consider a cash-in. Right? So if Austin Theory is removed from the faction, they sort of get broken up separately. Austin Theory is by himself, and then all of a sudden, in Australia, the fourth man enters, and it's Austin Theory as a major heel. But I have another name, Grayson Waller. He's from Australia. I don't think he's going to work out with the New Day. And I think ultimately pairing him with the New Day is to keep him busy. Again, if he's with the New Day, we're not going to think in our subconscious, oh, he'll be the fourth man. But he fits that vibe a little bit, in my opinion. Austin Theory probably fits it better. He's younger. He has a better look. But it's Theory, Waller, possibly Tony D, maybe a Miles Bourne. Those are really the only four that I could think of. I don't know any other heel. It's not going to be Ethan Page. It's not going to be Drew. Maybe a Trick Williams. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think Trick holds the title through Bound for Glory, which is, I think, the same week that Perth takes place. So I don't see him being there at all, right? So I don't know. I think I'm intrigued by this story. It's happening exactly the way I thought it would. And as someone who watches for the story and loves to fantasy book and try to play along and piece together the puzzle known as Triple H's booking, when I'm on track and I can start to predict things, I know Triple H doesn't like his booking to be predictable. That's why he changes things once things get leaked and whatnot. I love being able to predict people's booking. I think the show being predictable makes it fun. Because I can play along and I can piece the puzzle. Now it can get to a point to where you're not piecing together puzzles because they're not even giving you pieces. They're just giving you the whole thing completed. Right? Like Vince McMahon in 2016 to 2019 really wasn't telling stories. That he was just putting things that were, like, there wasn't even pieces to the puzzle. He just gave you the roadmap with the destination, and you knew exactly what was going to happen, and you didn't have to play along. Triple H does some very good booking, if I can give him some credit, in that even though some things seem predictable, right? So I thought tonight overall probably a 6. I think it wasn't the strongest showing. Definitely covered by the last 2 matches. The action was fine. I just felt that a lot of the results were not where they should have been. I think Punk and Sammy were really the only 2 matches in which the result was fine. It was the right decision, right? And Punk was the right decision because ultimately the cash-in was going to happen. With that in view, Punk winning was the right decision. Because, again, you're building towards War Games, and then you're building to Sammy winning the title, right? You're building to that Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes moment at WrestleMania 42. So what am I expecting for tomorrow? I'm expecting an 8 or higher out of the card tomorrow. Because you have all the gimmick matches tomorrow. You have the best part of the card tomorrow. You got Cena and Cody, which got very interesting Friday night with the supposed heel turn of Cena, or excuse me, face turn of Cena. He calls out Rock and Travis Scott, basically saying, "My team left me high and dry." Does the tribal chief, excuse me, the final boss? Does the final boss show up? Does Travis Scott show up? Cena says the only platinum rapper you have that's going to show up tomorrow is me, John Cena. And then, so I'm starting to think, like, is R-Truth going to show up? I know he's not a platinum rapper. He's never gone platinum. But I think what's interesting in this story to me is you bring him back, he cuts his hair, he eventually just sort of disappears. What if he shows back up out of the blue? Us not thinking about it. What if that's the swerve? Is The Rock has R-Truth on his side? I still think Cody's turning. I think that's the big swerve, is that Cody's turning tomorrow. And oh, baby, if that happens, Cody Rhodes is about to be one of my favorite characters. Cody Rhodes as a heel Cody Rhodes is fun. 'Cause, right, when he can be a bad guy, heel Cody Rhodes is fun. Especially if he's going to have The Rock in his corner. I'm not the biggest fan of Dwayne. I'm not expecting Dwayne to show up. I'm not going to get set up like Mania. But I have a feeling he is. He's done filming this boxing movie that's in theaters, I think, sometime this month. So I think he could be here. I think he might show up to get Cody the title, and we sort of go full circle there. Lyra and Becky's tomorrow. That's going to be a fun match. I'm expecting Lyra to win. Maybe a Bayley interference. Who knows? I don't quite know where the story would go, but I'm expecting Lyra to win and this feud to go off. I actually think it's Bayley versus Becky going forward, and Lyra is going to benefit from that. We got Solo and Jacob. Like I already said, Solo's I'm expecting some hard-hitting action inside the cage. I'm just expecting an overall better show tomorrow night. AJ and Dom. The TLC match is going to be a chaos fest, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's going to be fun because chaos is always fun. I don't have a lot of expectations. I think I'm going to be better at my predictions tomorrow. I think that while it was better matches, I also think the card was a little bit more predictable. But I thought tonight's card was predictable as well, and I only got 1 of 6 right. So who knows? I'm expecting a better night tomorrow night. But with that, thank you all for watching this episode or listening to this episode. I do appreciate it. My name is WETOODEEP. This is the Slap Me Wrestling Podcast. One final announcement is starting on Friday, and this will be Friday only, will be the Slap Me Gridiron Podcast, where we talk about the world of the NFL. Maybe some college, but I'm not necessarily the most in-tuned college fan because college has, the college has so many teams. There's 120 plus teams just in Division 1. FBS college football, Division 1. FCS has like another 100 and some odd teams. Then you got Division 2, Division 3. right? And so there's so much in college football that it's hard to sort of be in touch with everything. We're solely going to talk the world of the NFL. This Friday's episode will be my predictions, and we're going to touch on the hot topic of who's the better quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Cameron Newton. That's a hot button topic, and we're going to break that down, what my thoughts about that are. And then we'll do season predictions for the NFL as the preseason gets underway starting next week. But that is a Friday episode thing. We'll still have 2 episodes of Slap and Meat Wrestling, Tuesday and Friday as well. So Friday's a busy day for the podcast world here. We rebranded the YouTube to Slapping Meat Entertainment. And then, we have a new revamped, James worked on revamping the junkyardmediagroup.com website. And so I'm also going to say this, the current merchandise site that I have, I'm getting rid of in September once I'm done with the subscription to have the website. We're going to go to a different brand, Teespring. Guys, I'm not even kidding. I ordered merch for myself back in April, I think, just to show you guys what it would look like for you to buy it. And I ordered a mug, and I ordered a sticker for my car. And those are the only 2 things that I've gotten. I ordered 2 other t-shirts that I don't even know where the hell they are. I haven't got an email that they were even finished producing them yet. I didn't realize it took 3.5 months to produce t-shirts. One of these days they're just going to show up in the mailbox. And so we're definitely going to try to find a better merch site for merchandise. And we'll go from there. But yeah, that's all we got. I'm WETOODEEP. This is Slap and Me Wrestling Podcast. Thanks for listening, and I will see you definitely on Tuesday. Maybe we'll sneak in a Night 2 review. Who knows? I got a lot I got to talk about on Tuesday, so if I feel like it, a Night 2 review show could happen tomorrow night. Just be on alert for that, because I got a lot I want to talk about on Tuesday. But we'll see. Definitely will see you on Tuesday. And until then, enjoy Night 2 of SummerSlam. And I will see you on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. AEW, WWE, we're always on side. From fantasy booking to baddies that slay. Slap and Meat Wrestling every Tuesday.